All right, let's talk about something we all do. You're in the grocery store, right? And you're just staring at this wall of labels, feeling completely lost. Well, today, that's what we're diving into. We're going to decode some of those super common but kind of confusing terms you see on your food.
GMO, organic, irradiated. I mean, you see these words thrown around all the time. But what's the real story behind them? Are they just clever marketing to get you to spend more money? Or is there something genuinely different about what you're putting in your cart? Let's get into it, starting with maybe the most talked about one of them all.
So first on our list, GMOs, or genetically modified organisms. This is a huge one, right? Super impactful, but also super debated. And to really get why people have such strong opinions, we've got to break down what a GMO actually is. Think of it like this. Genetic modification is basically editing the instruction manual, the DNA, of a plant or animal. Scientists can go in and tweak the code, to change certain traits. Maybe they make a plant better at fighting off bugs, or they change a fruit's color. The goal is usually to create a product that's tougher or maybe just looks better. And this isn't some far-off future tech. Here in South Africa, it's already a big part of how we grow crops like maize and soybeans. And this is where it gets really interesting because it's a classic case of pros and cons, right? On the one side, the potential is huge. We're talking about bigger harvests, which means lower costs. We're talking about food that can resist drought and pests and that lasts longer on the shelf. That could make food cheaper for everyone. But, and it's a big but, there's the other side of the coin. We just don't know the long-term effects. There's some serious ethical questions, especially when it comes to animals. And we're still figuring out what this does to the environment around the farms.
Okay, so if GMOs are all about changing the food's DNA itself, let's switch gears to a label that's all about something else entirely. Organic isn't about the food's genetics. It's all about the process, how that food was grown.
And this is a really key point to get. When you see organic, it's not actually a health claim. It's a promise about the production method. It means the farm followed a very specific set of rules, focusing on natural stuff, think crop rotation, compost, manure, instead of synthetic, man-made chemicals.
Yeah, and getting that certified organic stamp is no joke for a farmer. It is a serious long-term commitment. They have to stick to these strict natural methods for a full 3 years before they're even allowed to put that label on their products. We're talking constant work, like rotating crops to keep the soil healthy and passing inspections every single year. It's a real dedication.
So, again, we see this trade-off. The upsides are pretty clear, right? It's generally way better for the environment. It helps protect our water. It means animals are treated better. And since it's so labor-intensive, it can create more jobs. But what's the catch? Well, all that labor and care means it's more expensive for us at the checkout. Plus, without artificial preservatives, it goes bad faster. And sometimes you need more land to get the same amount of food.
I think this quote just nails it. The science doesn't really say organic food is more nutritious for you. But what the science does show is that the way it's farmed is better for the planet. So really, it's a choice. It's about what kind of system you want your money to support. All right, let's tackle a label that, I'm going to be honest, sounds kind of scary. Food irradiation. The name alone makes you raise an eyebrow, right? So what is this stuff, and do you need to worry when you see it on a package? First things first, how do you even know if something's been irradiated? You're going to want to look for this little green symbol. It's called the Radura, and it's the official international sign. You'll probably see it on things like spices, maybe some meats, or fruits that have been imported. The process itself is actually way less sci-fi than it sounds. The best way to think about it is like the scanner your bag goes through at the airport. The food passes through a field of energy waves, and these waves are really good at zapping nasty bacteria like salmonella or any little insects that might have hitched a ride. So why do this? Well, the benefits really boil down to two things: safety and shelf life. On the safety side, it's a fantastic way to kill off dangerous bacteria. For shelf life, it helps food last way longer, which means we waste less. It can stop your potatoes from sprouting so quickly, or even let food companies use fewer chemical preservatives in things like sausages. But let's get to the big question, the one everyone thinks of. Is this stuff safe? Does it make your food radioactive? I mean, irradiation sounds an awful lot like radiation, And that's totally a valid concern. And the answer from all the big health organizations, like the World Health Organization, is a clear yes, it's safe. They've studied it inside and out. The process absolutely does not and cannot make food radioactive. The energy just passes through. It doesn't stick around. It's just like how getting an X-ray at the dentist doesn't make your teeth radioactive. Okay, so we've cracked the code on these labels. But it kind of begs a bigger question, right? Why do we even need things like GMOs and irradiation? Well, it turns out they're all tools in the toolbox for tackling a huge global issue, food security. And that's really just a way of saying we need to make sure every single person has enough safe, good food to eat. The concept of food security sounds complex, but it's pretty simple. It's not just about a country having enough food in total. It's about whether people, individual families, can actually get their hands on it and afford to buy it. It's about supply, sure, but it's also about access.
And this is where things get really sobering, especially here in South Africa. As a nation, we actually produce enough food to feed ourselves. We're self-sufficient. But look at this number, 20%. That means 1 out of every 5 households is too poor to get enough food. There's this huge, tragic gap between the food we have and the people who can actually eat it.
So what's going on? Why does that gap exist? Let's take a look at some of the really big challenges that are putting a strain on our whole food system, all the way from the farm to your grocery store. You've got a whole mix of things putting pressure on the system. On one hand, you have huge environmental issues. Climate change, droughts, a lack of water, all of that makes farming way harder and more expensive. Then you've got the human side of things. There are big questions around land reform and how that affects commercial farms. And think about strikes. When transport stops, food rots before it can even get to the shops. It's a massive loss. So when you boil it all down, these labels on our food tell a really complicated story, don't they? It's a story about science, about nature, about money, and about what we think is right or wrong. Every choice we make matters, from a tiny gene to the health of the whole planet. So the next time you're pushing that cart down the aisle, just remember, it's not just full of groceries, it's full of decisions. And every single thing you put in there is like casting a vote for the kind of food future you want. So the question is, what are you going to choose?